feel like I'm gonna get it this time. Oh, I know I got it. I can see one. I can see a huge ember. I got more than I needed on that one. Yes, that works. So I don't know what you want to call it. This is not my invention. Saw it on another video. Look at that huge coal. That is crazy. Okay. Once you get the technique down, it's kind of like you pull hard, but you got to loosen up and let it roll up, but not too much. You still got to keep a little bit of slack in the rope. So it was called like a pull drill. They had a bunch of different names on the video. It was from 2011. I'll have to get the name. Let's just go over how to make it, the elements of this. So this was my guard, because I was afraid this thing, it almost hit me. So I was like trying to protect my groin. I guess I could go put a cup on, put a piece of wood there if you're out in the wild. But I tried a couple of different spindles. So this would be the smaller end of a bow drill. Like this would be the smallest I would go. You can tell that's almost double, almost. So I tried bow drill size, then I tried this size spindle, then I eventually got to a larger size of a hand drill. Notice I had to put duct tape. So in this one, I could taper it down and slide the rock over it. Now obviously you wouldn't have that in the wild, but if you had cordage, you could put a series of clove hitches in there if you needed to make it wider, and then jam it down on that. And that should work as long as it doesn't knock your clove hitches off. And you might be able to put a groove in there to keep those from sliding off. So that would be one method. Or just taper down a thicker one, right? You could just taper the end down to get it the size of a hand drill. That might be easier, and keep this other thicker portion up here, mainly for strength as well, right? So you could keep, you know, a good couple of inches, 4 or 5 inches thick, so that this wouldn't go on down and this could taper. But right now we're experimenting. So super small at the top. So this is bow dark, so I knew it was going to be as smooth as rock. So you could take something like chert, something that was really glassy, that would work if it had a divot in it, or if you could make a divot, if you could flint knap one. And then this is about 7 inches long, so it's about the length from, and I have pretty big hands, but from my thumb to my middle finger. So I'm gonna say that's 7, 8 inches long, somewhere right around in there. I guess I could measure it, but I don't want to get up and get my tape measure. So this is like white rock or caliche, the type of white rock that kind of grows out in creek embankments, especially if you're up in North Texas. They kind of grow out of the bank of the creek, normally where you would find springs. My dogs like to chew on this stuff because it's really soft. If you had sandstone, that would work too. You want a rock that you can balance over time. First I was just grinding it down and kind of smooth it out. I was like, wait a minute, I need to chip some of this off first before I kind of grind it down. It doesn't need to be nice and smooth. It doesn't need to be cosmetic unless you need that grinding to get it to the point of leveling. So you can put your spindle in there. Now obviously this is not going to be as balanced as what you would get with like tire balancing or propeller balancing. But you get the idea here. I was just trying to get it where it wouldn't wobble so much that it jumped out. So I just kind of experimented. Notice here I can tell where the heavy side is, where I need to chip off more, and it obviously has, so you can see that it's not super heavy, but you let it rock back and forth at that heavy location. and then mark your down side, what side is down, and then you chip off from that. And then you keep repeating. So you start on the heavy side, you let it roll. This is not perfect because you're going to have imbalances even in the wood, but it's close enough so that it doesn't have one big lopsided part to the spindle and it jumps out. And there are other ways to make spindles, right? You could put bamboo with sand in it. That's what one of my buddies did. You could put rocks at the end of it. That's, one of my buddies did that as well. So the problem is that may lengthen your counterweight. So I found that this was vibrating, and it was vibrating the dust out. And I also found that you want that socket to be not super deep, but deep enough to where it doesn't just jump out on its own. So there's my fireboard. I started it just like normal. Now once it gets deep, it's going to start catching in there. So you've got to keep that perfectly up and down, because if it leans to the side, it's going to catch, it's going to stop, and then it's not going to wrap the rope up. So now let's go over how to wrap the rope. So I would say, let me look at my foot here. My foot is about a foot long. So almost 2 feet, right? Pretty close to that. Anywhere from 24 to 20 inches, somewhere. We're close to that, or 22. So I just tied a fisherman's knot in on both sides there to make a loop, because I wanted to give it a lot of grip. And then I started with a clove hitch. So I went from right to left, making a loop, from right to left again, making a loop, and then I slid that over. And I cinched that down super tight. And once I had that, I made another loop. Now this is not going to be a clove hitch. It's another hitch in there because I turned it upside down. And the reason I did that is I want it to pull in the same direction as the other one. I actually did that backwards. I actually put another half hitch in. Let me start over again. So I want the top one to come over. So I make my loop, and I turn that loop upside down. Let me see if I did it that time. Yes, I did. Good. So now both of those are going in the same direction. I want that extra friction, and that'll get super tight. But now, instead of one going this way, like when I made the mistake earlier and put another half hitch in, now I've got both lines going the same direction by flipping that over. And I'm going to roll that up nice and tight. But before I do, I need to put a handle in here. So I intentionally left that knot, that fisherman's knot, at the end here so that it wouldn't get in the way, it wouldn't get bound up. So I used, where'd it go? This is just that other spindle. I'm going to put a lark's head in it. So I bring those two pieces of line apart, I flip those over so that they make a loop, and then I cinch that in. So now I'm going to roll this up super tight. You notice I've got a little area that's bound up. I don't want that. So I want these nice and smooth as possible. And now that's ready to go. So that's set up. Now I've got about 2.5 inches below it. You don't want it to be too close, because then it's going to hit your fireboard, right? So I need some distance between the actual counterweight, or the weight itself, and it also gives me room. Now, ideally I would like this to be longer, but this is all I had. This is all the yucca that I had here. And then you take your spindle at the top. So it's a give and take. If I let that get bound up, see how it stopped? So what's happening, I'm getting way too much friction there. So I'm going to carve this down again just to reduce that. What's happening is there's so many edges in there that if that turns at all, it catches on the side and it stops it from rolling. So you've got to keep it perfectly up and down as much as you can. Let's see how that feels pretty good. And the only reason I'm putting it up here is to reduce that vibration. These are pretty flexible because I made this, and I made them too thin. Wrap that up nice and tight. I probably won't get one this time, holding that down with my feet. But you definitely get a feel for it after a while, and you'll feel if you're giving too much tension, too little, what have you. But it's really, once you get a feel for it, it's not as hard as it looks. It's a pretty cool little method. Not too much downward pressure, if you already have that weight in the weight from the rock. You can see that smoke coming off of there. And even if it doesn't twist up all the way, give it another little pull just in case. And then a lot of times it'll restart itself. And I've already got another coal. So really good method, especially if you're using yucca or low ignition wood. But you want to carve this down at the top so it's super small, just like you would with a bow drill. You want way less friction up here so that you can maximize this friction down here, and then this friction won't bind you up. But I got 2 coals, good coals, out of that one notch. So you don't have to push down real hard, because if you do, it's going to stop this from turning. You don't want that. It's almost a little bit just the weight of your hand, the weight of the rock, but not using muscle to push down, just the weight, the sheer weight of it. And then you should have a coal pretty quick. So that's a pull drill.